John Prine died the other day from the COVID virus, and he's kind of a family friend. My daughter's husband, R.B. Morris, has known John for decades, and they frequently perform together. R.B. has opened for John Prine a good number of times, and this is my John Prine story because I actually had an opportunity to meet him, and as far as I know, John Prine's the only real celebrity who's ever crossed my path with whom I've had an actual conversation. This is back, I've known John Prine's music since the early 1970s. I remember hearing John Prine played in the barracks when I was in the Marine Corps. The early stuff, Sam Stone in particular, was one that we were really fond of. And when I finally had the opportunity to meet Prine, my whole intents and purpose was to thank him for writing Sam Stone as sort of an anthem for Vietnam era veterans. So he had a show in Lexington, Kentucky. We went. It's my only time I had the opportunity to catch him in concert. It was a wonderful show, and R.B. opened for him. So after the show, I got to go backstage and hang out with Prine. And first thing I said was, I was in the Marines in the early 1970s. Thanks for Sam Stone. And said a whole lot on behalf of a generation of military men, of which I was a small part. And he looks up at me and he says, I hear you know Muhlenberg County. And I says, well, yeah, I do. And he says, well, what's it like? He hadn't been back to Muhlenberg County in Paradise since before the incredible devastation of I don't know if we call it devastation or not, I call it progress, of the Peabody Coal Companies pretty much raising off the entire surface area of Muhlenberg County to dig for coal. And what was left was the Muhlenberg County that I've gotten to know very well. This was because of a purchase I made way back in the 1980s when I decided to hunt for wild turkey. It was a Remington 870. I found it slightly used. That's a pump action shotgun. Had 28-inch barrel. Is perfect for what I wanted to use it for. You could change out the chokes so that you get this full turkey choke on there, and it is the perfect turkey hunting gun. It had a 3.5-inch chamber, but the only thing I ever shot out of it, other than regular 2 3/4-inch shells, was 3-inch shells with turkey loads. And I'll tell you what, I've shot a lot of things in my days, from AR-15s and 22s to bazookas and machine guns and stuff, and nothing ever slammed into my shoulder as hard as a 3-inch turkey load out of a Remington 870 pump. Not even a Mosin Nagant comes close to that snap. So anywho, every spring I would dutifully take off. Used to be a big backpacker. Used to be a big solo guy. Spent a lot of time in the woods by myself. Loved being by myself. Still love being by myself. And this was after my serious backpacking days, but I could still drive into the Peabody the wildlife game refuge there, which consisted of most of Muhlenberg and several other counties, and hunt for turkeys. It was just turkey, deer. It was just lousy with game. That's what it was intended to do after the mining was done. And Prine wanted to know what it was like, what the terrain was like. And it is kind of unusual. It's a little bit moonscapey there. There aren't any big trees. It's all kind of bushy, and a lot of the more level areas, acres and acres and acres of it, it's been dedicated to this, I call it savanna grass. It is a blonde grass that grew up about up to your hips, maybe, and it was interesting stuff to wade through because you could actually flush wild turkeys out of this stuff just like you were pheasant hunting. I never took a shot doing that, but I used to go through there, and they'd scare up, they'd come up behind you. I like to wait for you to go by, and it was just really interesting. There were some areas, higher areas, like sand ridges and stuff, that did have some forest and wasn't mined. It wasn't either a pile or a leveled off field or a hole that was full of water. But it's hardly, you would call it a landscape that anybody would want to look at. I did have a really nice campsite up there. Up on the top of a sand ridge, and I'd go up there and I'd talk to the turkeys trying to call them in. Of course, they never would come. They'd talk, but they wouldn't come. And otherwise, you surveyed this area, that the entire surface area of open country had been altered by heavy machinery. So it was part like Africa, and was part like Appalachia, and there were holes everywhere, and every one of those holes had fish in them. So it was a nice, I'd go hunting, but I would never get to shoot anything, and I'd get bored with it and end up going fishing, and it was a lot more successful doing that there. But there's no features at all. When a railroad track ran through it, no buildings, maybe the occasional derelict piece of mining equipment, like a big scoop, that sort of thing. But it was featureless, yucky looking territory. But its attraction to me, and I told this to Prine, was that when I was there all by myself. I had acres and acres and acres and square miles around me where there were no other human beings, and I guess I didn't care if it looked like a former battlefield or whatever. It was great alone time. I remember going up on that ridge to that one campsite, and every year when I went up there, I got a visit from the same game warden who just made sure that I had all my permits and stuff right. We would exchange some pleasantries and stuff. And there you go. And that's the only people I'd ever see on these trips that take 2, 3, 4 days. Going out there, sitting around and sitting underneath the bushes and talking to turkeys and wandering around with my 870 shotgun. So, and you know what? That was pretty much the extent of our conversation. But I sure do miss Prine. And I know that my daughter and son-in-law both are pretty much heartbroken at his passing. He was a very unique dude who created some very unique art. I loved the man's mindset. he took absurdity. Where absurdities frequently makes people uncomfortable and squirmy, John Prine reveled in absurdity. It's a big old goofy world. That's what he said. And he was right. So, rest in peace, John Prine.